How did it do it? It collaborated with its suppliers to share the intellectual property around the P-valve design and construction. It's a $5 part that was about to send the Japanese economy to its knees. Collaborate with its suppliers to share the design. The suppliers moved everything off their factory floor, retooled their plants to be able to machine this part. The fire was on a Friday, and by Tuesday, the first companies were reproducing the $5 P-valve, and by a week from the fire, Toyota's lines were back in operation. It was an extraordinary collaboration between Toyota and its suppliers. Now, it's a special cultural opportunity there because of the relationship between Toyota and its suppliers. It's far different than the relationship of American auto companies with their suppliers, where it's seen as a win-lose, I win, you lose. This is a win-win situation. Collaboration makes it happen. We rely on collaboration for security. Well, every now and again, we have a lot of satellites in orbit. And we had most surprising incident in 2009 of two satellites colliding, a Russian and an American. Well, this creates a very dangerous situation. We lose eyes on the world. The Russian satellite was actually defunct, so it wasn't operational, but the American satellite was quite live. My good friend Jim Blanton, who goes by the name Crash, was responsible at the United States Air Force for creating a new program that would predict the course of satellites and then send out a little warning signal. Danger, Will Robinson, there's going to be a collision in 7 days if you don't do something. Because I think there are 12,000 objects in orbit at the moment. That's a lot of collision potential. This crash took place at 485 miles above the Earth, above Siberia. Well, Crash's programmers got to work, and he was thrilled. They just loved the idea. He's basically going to create an app to predict satellite collision. Well, that rocks the house. It's a lot of fun to do. They had it all done in a couple weeks. 4 months after it was done, it was still sitting on a shelf, waiting for security clearance from the Department of Defense to put this new software onto the Department of Defense computer systems. It hadn't been designed with the security folks, and so now security folks were looking at it afterwards. They didn't understand it. They didn't trust it. They had no reason to, and their job was to protect the system, never mind the satellites. Imagine if that collaboration had been right from the start, so that information security folks with operational and business folks had built a successful satellite collision avoidance system. It would have gone onto the network that much faster. Well, we collaborate for profitability. So it turns out that there are when stores' shelves are empty and shoppers go to grocery stores to find their favorite their Huggies or their Kleenex, their toilet tissues, whatever it may be. If they don't find their product on the shelves, they're unhappy. They may switch to a different product. They may switch to a different store. Well, stockouts it's called a stockout. When a customer shows up and it's not there, maybe the sale went on too far, too long. It turns out that the stores have a very difficult time using just invoices and back order data to keep track of what their actual stock levels are on store shelves. Well, there's also good point of sale software and technology now that lets individual stores track this stuff wonderfully. And it's been developed over a period of years. Walmart started some years ago and dumped some, it's a strong word, but essentially they insisted that their suppliers use the Walmart software, but no one was ever comfortable with it, and so it lay on a shelf quite often. Well, recently, this software has become commercially available, off the shelf, very easy to use, integrated with back office systems, and now companies have come together to collaborate, and that's really what was missing. Now, for example, Food Lion, which is a large grocery chain in the United States, 1,300 stores, and Kimberly-Clark, a major paper manufacturer, collaborated to keep stock on shelves. There was, as a result, an 18% increase in sales and $167 million in profits generated that would otherwise have been lost. So it's being able to collaborate around the use of technology is very important. You can't just leave it on the doorstep and ask someone to do a better job. This man is a very interesting fellow. We also collaborate for safety in the workplace as well as for profits. American companies expect to make a profit. They're not always first with safety. Well, this is Paul O'Neill at Alcoa. Paul O'Neill was CEO of Alcoa, the great aluminum producer, from 1980, mid-1980s to the mid-1990s, a 10-year run. He said, look, we are going to make aluminum as great a product as we know it can be. It's back on its heels a little bit these days. The demand isn't quite there. Last a really good product was a soda can, but he had a lot of faith in the industry. And he said, if we understand our system well and our process well, we can do two things. One, we can get rid of safety problems. We can get rid of injuries on the job. And the second is we can make a lot of money. Because if we understand our work process well enough to get rid of injuries, we'll understand our work process well enough to see where we can rinse out costs and come back roaring. And that's exactly what happened. He took safety off the table. He said to his executives, if you see a safety problem, you need to fix it in 24 hours. It's not a budget issue. I'm taking budget off the table. You will fix it at whatever the cost. It became a non-negotiable item. It became, as he said, something that the entire organization could collaborate around. It was a shared value for both workers and, of course, eventually executives who were graded on it. And he said, when we bring someone to work, we have an obligation to return them with all 5 fingers, 2 hands, 2 legs, just the way that they came here. Now, and he turned to the unions in his first days at the job, United Steelworkers, and he said, now, you and I are never going to negotiate about safety because we'll never have any need to negotiate about safety. Because if there's a safety problem here, we are fixing it. It is non-negotiable. You let me know. And the gains were extraordinary. They rinsed out, essentially, error to close to zero within a couple of years. He built Alcoa back to a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate in that 10 years. He was able to achieve both safety and profits. He said, having to choose between one and the other, that's insanity. I cannot imagine a leader saying, you can have one, but not the other. You can have both. And he showed how. It was collaboration through the workforce with the executives to achieve something very, very important. You can have prosperity by collaboration. So this is Steve Ellis. Steve is Executive Vice President for Wholesale Solutions at Wells Fargo. In 1999, he was responsible for, this is Steve in 1999, this is Steve today. In 1999, he brought Wells Fargo's wholesale section, which is their commercial banking, onto the internet. The move was, Wells has always been a leader. They started in 1852 in the California Gold Rush, changing technology. Here's Mr. Wells and Mr. Fargo, and so Steve's standing on the shoulders of giants, and I apologize for the wrong phone in the image, but we'll get over it. And Steve, in San Francisco, saw Silicon Valley all around him, and he took his unit. He had a charge from Chief Executive Dick Kovacevic to go and do this, and it didn't matter what the cost was. Kovacevic looked around and he said, I can see that the internet and wholesale is like the ATM. It's just something you have to do. There was no business case for it. It was $250 million a year to get it done. It was a $1 billion bet. Kovacevic said, I'm going to make the bet. That's what I do. I'm CEO. I'm used to making bets, and I'm used to being right. He said what made it different was Steve Ellis. Why? Because Steve spent all of his time listening to customers. He said, and Steve has said, in the internet world, you think that maybe you don't have to listen to customers, it's all online. You have to listen to them even more. If you want to become their partner, then you need to know how their business works. And once you know how their business works, your systems can go in, you can collaborate together to rinse cost and time out. These are small organizations, but these are large money sums. Steve Ellis said that at the end of the day, 80% of what they design is the customer's idea. 20% is Wells Fargo. When he came on in 1999 to lead Wells Fargo's wholesale solutions onto the internet, it was it was carrying fees, it was carrying transactions valued at just under $1 trillion, 900 and something billion. Within the decade, Steve Ellis's wholesale unit was carrying $11 trillion in transactions. That's an astounding, and was now responsible for nearly half of Wells's profits. He moved a bank that was used to working in this world of the stagecoach onto the internet, straddling both worlds by listening to the customer, by creating internet solutions that moved quickly, moved lightly, and gave customers maximum choice. A really extraordinary accomplishment. Collaboration will give you victory. Well, we know about Obama. He's president of the United States, if I don't trip over the stand here. Well, when he came on to the campaign, he noticed that Hillary Clinton, who he was running against in the primary, had all the big party contributors sewed up. Jonathan Edwards, who was running at the time, had the unions sewed up. Actually, it was just the reverse. But Obama noticed also that on Facebook were millions and millions of people, partisans, waiting to get jazzed up, who were excited about becoming part of something different. And he said, I'm going to go around these established party organizations. I'm going to go right to the customer. I'm going to give them tools to build a digital house. These three guys, Chris Hughes, David Plouffe, and Joe Rossbers, they are the brain trust behind the Obama 2008 social media campaign. They brought in $500 million in online contributions. 1 in every 5 votes came from an online participant for Obama. They generated millions of minutes of YouTube, it's just an extraordinary set of numbers and accomplishments that left first Hillary Clinton and then John McCain gasping, trying to keep up. There was no way, and victory came in the greatest political contest of the world, the presidency of the United States. And lastly, you can collaborate for freedom. So when I say lastly, we still have some slides to go through. Don't get your hopes up here just yet. So freedom, Egypt. We'll go into this in detail towards the end of the presentation. Explorer, Google, Yahoo, PayPal, Twitter. Young woman up there, I'll pronounce this incorrectly, Ahmad Mahfouz, forgive me, had a YouTube video on January 8th in which she dared Egyptians to join her in Tahrir Square. Tunisia had exploded. Egypt was restive. And she said, I, a girl, am going down to Tahrir Square, and I'll pronounce that wrongly as well, and you should join me. We'll go into this in some detail, but of course the result is now that we have regime change in Egypt. We have new voices emerging. We can talk about it in a few minutes. So in a world where we're all connected, and we are, and we're all enabled, and we are, we've had glimpses of it. This was 30 years ago. We were told it was coming. This is, 1964, so that would be 47 years ago. Marshall McLuhan, in the Gutenberg Galaxy, spoke of the interplay of cause and effect in the total structure. I don't know what that means, but he did coin the term the global village. And if you wonder where it came from, that's where it came from. We also had futurists worried about it. So Future Shock in 1971, Alvin Toffler worried about all this global village and the shortening of time. As interdependency grows, small groups achieve great power for disruption. Well, that's certainly true. As the rate of change speeds up, the length of time in which they can be ignored shrinks to near nothingness. I give you Tunisia, I give you Egypt, I give you Syria, I give you Yemen, I give you Libya.